Welcome to the Good Reading Magazine podcast. Good Reading is a monthly magazine dedicated to books and reading and aims to help readers discover their next favourite book. You can find out more about the books discussed on today's podcast at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.
Lucien, Gurs, 1st of September, 1941. And just like that, she was gone. I was dumbfounded. Here in this muddy, rat-infested prison, Klara made everything better. And now she was gone, and Rachel was gone, but I was still here. It made me want to curl into a ball and cry. When school was over for the day, I plodded back to the barracks. Not even the promise of lunch could make me go any faster. Maman was on serving duty, and she took her time filling my bowl, scooping up all the vegetables she could find in that watery mess. "Good day?" she asked, as she passed back my bowl. I shrugged, too upset to pretend. She frowned. "What's wrong, chérie? Has something happened?" I tried to reply, but the words wouldn't come. Maman pressed her hand to my cheek. "As soon as I'm finished, let's go for a walk. You can tell me then." We couldn't go far, just to the end of the block and back again. "You know you can get under the fence," I said, keeping my voice very low. She raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" When I made a scrabbling motion to show her, she laughed. "Seriously," I said, "that's how you get under the wire. Not just this one, the other ones too." "The external fences, I meant. Once you were under the last wire," I explained, "you were out. Out of the camp, out of Gurs. Well, unless you crawled back in again."
Suzanne Leal is the best-selling author of The Deceptions, The Teacher's Secret and Border Street. Suzanne is a regular interviewer and presenter at literary events and festivals and was the senior judge for the New South Wales Premier's Literary Awards from 2017 to 2019. Suzanne is also a lawyer experienced in child protection, criminal law and refugee law. Suzanne is the winner of the 2025 ARA Historical Novel Society of Australasia's Prize for Historical Fiction in the Young Adult category for The Year We Escaped. Suzanne, welcome to the Good Reading Podcast.
So lovely to be here, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Suzanne, first things first, congratulations on taking out the ARA Historical Novel Prize in the Young Adult category for 2025.
Pretty exciting, isn't it? It came as quite a surprise and a delight, really.
The Year We Escaped is not your first novel on the subject of World War II. Border Street, The Deceptions and Running with Ivan all deal with various aspects of World War II. Wherein lies the attraction for you to this period of history?
I think it started from university. I was, or even at school, I studied German, and I love studying German. And I also studied at university in Germany. And when I came back, I moved to Bondi, or just near Bondi, Tamarama. And it turned out that our landlords, who were also our very close neighbours, were Holocaust survivors. And I found it really hard to reconcile my study of German, where there'd really been a gap in talking about the war and this life experience of Fred and Eva Perger. Fred was also a man with a photographic memory. Tom Keneally, I think, has one, and Fred had one. And so when I wanted to write, it seemed a great idea to sit him down and have him tell his story, which he wanted to do. And I think it was knowing him so well and having such an intimate relationship in terms of talking about a very difficult history, just had me thinking, who would I have been during the war and how might I have behaved? And it's never a question I've been able to answer adequately, which perhaps just keeps me writing.
To create a work of historical fiction, you need some sort of framework of factual history on which to build your story. What's the history that informs The Year We Escaped?
Previously, I'd been focused on Czechoslovakia as it was, because that's where Fred and Eva came from. But with The Year We Escaped, I moved to France. I speak French, and I'd spent time living in France because my father was a French academic. And so I feel very close to the country, to the language. I didn't know much about the war. I knew a lot about well, your bit about the resistance. And then one day, some years ago, I was listening to the ABC, and Peter Gross is an author, and he was speaking on it. And he'd written a book about a cluster of villages on the plateau in southeast France. And it was communities who were Protestant who together gave refuge to perhaps thousands of Jewish children during the war. And the book is called A Good Place to Hide, and it just fascinated me. And I was interested in writing for children and young adults. And I thought, what you need is an adventure story, and an adventure story where you've got a whole lot of children who are pushed together, but in a place of refuge would be a great place to start. As it happened, though, with writing, you always need to set yourself up. So I'm thinking, I want the kids to get to this place, to this Le Chambon-sur-Lignon, or one of the surrounding villages. But how are they going to get there? And I wanted to have four. Then you sort of do more and more research to work out how could they possibly have got there. And I discovered the internment camp of Gurs, where much of the narrative is set.
Let's talk about the characters. Klara and Rachel, friends, and two brothers, Lucien and Paul. Friendship is a really powerful motivating force in this book. These are all characters we can feel good about and get behind.
Yeah, I think that's important in the story, particularly about the war. There are tragic things, there are awful things when you're writing about war. And so I think it's really important to have something that's heartwarming, something that's hopeful. And for middle grade readers in particular, I think new friendships, old friendships, and friendships that come together through adversity and adventure are really important. If you have characters that you like yourself, then the readers will as well. And for me as a reader, I always like to fall in love with my characters. So I wanted to make characters who were not perfect and, got themselves into trouble every now and then and didn't always behave as well as you might expect, but who are lovable and who try and who show bravery and who show kindness at a time when that might be difficult to show. There's four characters. Klara and Rachel are from Germany, and they're school friends, as it happens. Klara comes from a single parent home. Her father died when she was much younger, and she and her mother find themselves forced from their homeland in Germany because they're Jewish, and through a series of actions find themselves in France. I like Klara because she's feisty. She's had to do a lot herself. She's had to grow up quickly, but she's good friends with her mum, and she's quite independent and resilient. And she was someone I wanted to explore. Rachel's a bit more chaotic, and I love that as well because I think often the different friends or different personalities attract. So she's a bit madcap, quite fun, and a very loyal friend to Klara. Lucien and Paul are born in Paris, and they're brothers. Lucien, when we meet him, is about 10, actually 10 or 11. Through the time of the book, he becomes 13. And his younger brother is about 4 years younger than him. And for readers who know about younger brothers, often they can be pretty annoying, particularly when they're small. So I really enjoyed making that dynamic as well, where Lucien is sort of getting older. He's wanting to do more adult or grown-up things, and then Paul's jumping on him or calling him out. But there is a love underneath that. And when the war starts, the two of them are more reliant on each other than they may have expected.
War can be a difficult subject to write about for children. Why is fiction your choice for telling stories about war?
Fiction is my choice for everything. The joy of fiction is that you can be taught without realizing you're being taught. So for me, for reading, I just like to lose myself in a story. So for me, it's like traveling. when you lose yourself in the story, you become the story. And if by coincidence you learn historically, then that's a bonus. And I think as a child, that's how, and a young adult, that's how I learnt as well. So any history that I know well, it's probably thanks to Jean Plaidy and a lot of English historical work. And I thought for me, the war is interesting. The war is morally, the Second World War in particular, it's morally complex. It involves decisions that people should never have to make. It involves unexpected bravery or unexpected poor behaviour. And I think that's a really important thing to examine. As I said before, I often wonder who I would have been during the war and how I might have behaved. And I think that younger readers reading my work and our other similar historical work might have the same question posed of them if we've done our job well and our readers can immerse themselves in the action. I also understand that a lot of kids today know less about the Second World War than we expect. And I think that while it's 80 years ago, uh, to understand history, you understand the times today. And I think for that reason, it's important to give kids a foundation of what happened in the Second World War, what the devastation was, how it resolved, and what we can learn from that when looking at today.
Klara and Rachel and Lucien and Paul's paths cross, as you said, when they are taken to Gurs, a French detention camp in the southwest of France. It's a harsh environment with very few comforts and even less food. Why expose young readers to these realities? And where is the line between too much and not enough?
For me, when I discovered Gurs, that was actually almost a eureka moment, because when I write about difficult things, particularly for younger audiences, I want to make sure that it's does its job in terms of adventure and interest and uh, opening up themes of friendship and courage without traumatizing kids. I think the world's not an easy place at the moment, and I don't think that as a novelist, I need to make it any harder for kids. What I do need to do, I think, is to make it adventurous and to make it thoughtful and to enable the kids to put themselves in a place where might be slightly fraught with danger, because after all, kids like adventure. I mean, Roald Dahl and David Walliams aren't super bestsellers for nothing. Kids like it when things are a bit hair-raising, a little bit dangerous, but not too traumatic. And I think Gurs was a good find in that regard, because whilst it was an internment camp, it wasn't a death camp. Any deaths that took place were from neglect. It was a place where there was a whole combination of people. So there were people from the Spanish Civil War, there were Jewish people, there were political activists, there was mud from which you could make sculptures. There were blackberries where if you could dive under the fence, the barbed wire fence, you could find them. So what I wanted to do was to not make the war sound fantastic, but also just protect the children a bit from the more horrific parts of the Holocaust, whilst still hinting at them, so that if children wanted to read further later, they could. But that was a decision that they were making rather than me foisting it on them.
And while we're exploring the themes of war and detention camps and these kind of traumatic events, we're also considering themes like survival and loss, separation, family, but also things like friendship and courage, and particularly empathy. And I would suppose that fiction makes all these things possible.
I think it does because, yeah, we're always told show, don't tell. And I would say that often in non-fiction, you're getting facts and you're getting them very carefully set out at a particular time. In fiction, you've got to weave those facts in between, hopefully, a compelling plot and compelling characters. And I think the way that we encourage empathy in anybody is by the writer saying, well, look at this person. This is what she's done. This is what he's done. This is what they've done. What might you do? You're not being didactic. You're not telling the kids how they should think. You're just saying, I found this interesting. This is why. What do you reckon? And I think by enabling the readers to claim their agency, they get to immerse themselves in a book that's no longer mine, but theirs. And I think that fosters all those themes of courage, resilience, and survival, and as you've said, particularly empathy.
So it's all well and good to explore these themes and to create good feelings, but you've still got to tell a good story and create a compelling storyline. Within this story, there's still a real sense of adventure.
That was my biggest interest. I wanted to make this story an adventure. I wanted to make it something that readers could pick up and find it hard to put down because they just want to know what happens. I'm hoping that I might be able to write a couple more in this story. I don't think the adventure's quite finished yet. The thing with younger readers and with children in difficult circumstances is that children are children and young people are young people, and they will find some way of gathering together or some way of finding hope or a sense of adventure or even a sense of fun, because there are moments of humour as well. And I think that was important as well, that even though times are really difficult, to have children around means that you're going to have laughter and you're going to have play and you're going to have adventure. And I think adventure was really the priority for me for this book.
Well, Suzanne, it's a great story. Once again, congratulations on taking out the prize, and thank you for joining me on the Good Reading Podcast.
So lovely to be here, Greg. Thanks for having me.
I've been talking to Suzanne Leal about her ARA Historical Novel Society of Australasia's award-winning book for 2025, The Year We Escaped. It's published by Angus and Robertson, and you can find it at goodreadingmagazine.com.au. My name's Greg Dobbs, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to Good Reading print and online magazine at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.